years, the idea that Moscow might send a killer after a target on the soil of a NATO member sounded like something out of a Cold War thriller. Plausible in theory, rare enough in practice that most people didn't think about it. Then Poland's Prime Minister stood in front of cameras and said, in effect, it just happened here, and we stopped it at the last moment. The target was a man holding both Ukrainian and American citizenship, living in Warsaw. According to Polish officials, he had become, in their words, inconvenient to the Kremlin. A man recruited by Russian intelligence was arrested just before he could carry out the killing. Officials have not said how the plot was meant to unfold or if it was only intended for a specific victim. Only that the danger was real and close and resolved by a narrow margin. What makes this moment different isn't that Russia has been accused of political killings abroad before. It has, repeatedly, going back decades. What's different is the setting. This wasn't an exile hiding in a distant capital or a defected crackdown in a country with a murky rule of law. This was an operation aimed at an American citizen inside a nation bound by treaty to the United States and its allies. The first time, according to Warsaw, that Moscow has been accused of trying something like this on NATO territory. Step back, and the Warsaw case fits into something larger and more troubling. A steady drumbeat of plots, some successful, most not, stretching across the continent since the invasion of Ukraine began. A Russian dissident artist was gunned down near his home in Poland only weeks earlier, in what officials called an assassination with clear political fingerprints. A Russian exile living under police protection elsewhere in Europe narrowly escaped a plot against his life. Security services in the Baltics have broken up schemes targeting both a vocal supporter of Ukraine and a Russian activist living in exile. German authorities have dismantled two separate operations, one aimed at an executive whose company supplies weapons to Ukraine and another at a Ukrainian military official living abroad. Poland alone has weathered an earlier plot against Ukraine's president, a defected Russian helicopter pilot killed in Spain, and now this. Intelligence officials describe the pattern bluntly. This campaign carries the backing of political authority in Moscow, not the freelancing of rogue operatives. None of this is entirely new. Russia's security services have a long and well-documented history of reaching beyond their borders to silence people they consider threats. A poison tea in London, a nerve agent smeared on a doorknob in an English town, and a shooting in broad daylight in a Berlin park. What has changed since the full-scale war in Ukraine began is the pace and the geography. The hits are no longer confined to safe, familiar hunting grounds. They're creeping toward the heart of the alliance meant to guarantee that such things don't happen there. The tactics themselves tend to be improvised rather than elegant. Recruitment often happens through intermediaries. Sometimes, people with no ideological stake at all, hired hands lured by money rather than conviction, sourced through the same underworld networks used for smuggling or sabotage. It's a cheaper, messier version of the old spy versus spy playbook, but no less lethal when it succeeds, and no less alarming when it very nearly does. For the countries hosting these plots, the calculus is uncomfortable. A killing carried out against a private citizen doesn't trigger the kind of alliance-wide response that an attack on soldiers or territory might. There's no missile, no uniformed combatant, nothing that fits neatly into the treaty language written to deter conventional war. And yet, the message such an operation sends is unmistakable: that no border, no passport, and no adopted homeland offer real protection from a state determined to settle scores. That ambiguity is precisely the point. Hybrid warfare thrives in the space between peace and open conflict, in acts that inflict real harm and real fear without crossing the threshold that would force a formal, unified response. A cyber attack that disables a hospital, a drone that stays across a border, an assassin quietly slipped into a European capital. Each one is designed to stay just below the line that would compel a collective reaction, while still degrading the sense of safety that underpins the alliance. Officials in Warsaw and Washington have signaled they intend to treat the episode as more than an isolated crime, as evidence of a deliberate campaign requiring a coordinated response, not a series of quiet individual rescues. Whether that translates into tougher countermeasures or simply into more vigilant, Intelligence sharing behind closed doors remains to be seen. What's clear is that the front line in this conflict no longer looks like a front line at all. It looks like an apartment building in a European capital, a quiet street, an ordinary evening, the last place most people would expect a war to reach them.